Hello, welcome to The Truth. I'm Professor Margaret Rogers Van Coops. I'm a doctor of integrated and alternative medicine. I am able to work with people to look at them emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually. I am able to channel an individual's soul structure coding, and the list goes on. Why am I telling you that? Well, I did a show recently on my alien encounters as a child, but what I haven't told you is how I've been telepathic with the aliens and the Arcturians and the Syrians most of my life. In fact, most of the knowledge and wisdom that I have written in all of my books, there are 17 or 18 of them now, I've lost count, and when I'm literally sitting at my computer like this, so fast, channeling without thinking. You know, normally when a person writes a book, they do a skeleton outline about the concept, what they're talking about, and then they kind of struggle for the first opening line and trying to find that I'm going to get you in my corner feeling about their book. I've never had to do that, I have to be honest. I literally hear from them, okay, we're ready to do a book. So I have to rearrange my calendar in some way so that I won't be disturbed too much, turn off the telephone, turn off anything else I can think of, maybe a little bit of music in the background occasionally, but mostly silence. And I sit there and off we go and we start. The book that I am working on right now is called Regenesis 2. I recently, a year ago, published Regenesis 1. Now, in my book, Regenesis 1, back in those days, I was 25 when they gave me this story all night long, repeating it, dreaming it over and over and over again. And it was given to me in the locale that I grew up in London. And so all the way through that book, it is a timepiece in that sense that back in those days, the areas that I described, travelling through and across London to escape the alien invasion, was literally the description of how that journey was. And I did have people read it back in those days when it was not published, and they would say, my goodness, did you really go to that school? My goodness, did you do this? And I recognize this and I recognize that. So local people enjoyed it, and they were just my test readers. And I actually had the opportunity by Bantam Books to publish it. The thing was, when I wrote it then, I wrote it as a dream, because it was a dream. And at the end of the dream, I woke up and said, okay, I'm fine. But as I sat there in that office of the Bantam publisher, and was about to literally sign my document to say, yes, you can publish it, my spirit guide said, no, Margaret, it's a trilogy. So I calmly put the pen down. And the man said, what's wrong? And I said, well, truth is, I can't sell it to you. I have to keep it. There's more to it. There's another story. Well, we can publish it and then you can give us the other story. No, I can't. Because, number one, this is connected to another story I haven't written yet, and I don't know what's going to be in it. And he's like, she's weird. And I knew I couldn't explain too much, because back in those days they were still in England trying to get their heads around the fact that we were mediums and psychics and could channel. So the average person was still like, is this a God-given gift? And asked me questions like that. And I said, you can call it what you want, but I'm sorry, I'm not going to publish it with you. So I went home with that and nurtured it as a typed out manuscript, because that's how we did it in those days. No videos, remember, no computers, nothing like that, just typewriters. And put it in the cupboard. And time went by, and I literally didn't bother about it. It was just something in the back of my mind. But meanwhile, I've been channeling another book called In This Time. I'm not going to tell you about it, but I will tell you, even to this day, it is resting at about 12 chapters, because I had to evolve in my own world with the aliens in order to know what I was going to write about. I can now come back to these famous pictures of a great enormous aliens sitting on a chair in Egypt on the wall, and on their side is a pocket bag that is quite sort of pretty to look at, and then in their hands is a wand. Well, when I wrote Regenesis, I had no idea about that. I'd never seen that on the walls. I hadn't been to Egypt yet. So it was just channeled writing. And in the story of Regenesis 1, my heroine has a superpower, which I won't tell you about now. And what she basically discovers is there are aliens walking around in silver suits, which I'm not going to tell you any more about right now, because if you knew, it would spoil it for later books. And so these entities, you can't see who they are, they're in silver sort of boiler suits with head to toe and helmets and everything, like we see today in movies. But back in those days, that hadn't even, I don't think even Star Trek was on yet. And so I literally had each one of these people in a silver suit carrying this little purse thing and also what looked like a wand. And in the story, she learns to understand that the little purse thing is something that controls the atmosphere around the alien who's in these suits, because they cannot breathe the Earth's oxygen. It's too rich. So this little thing, and because of their size, was controlling the air around them so that they could breathe their type of air and not our type of air. And the little wand turns out to be a mental little gadget that when you think about point A up the road, you immediately, when you think of it with your vibration, are transferred from point A to point B. And my heroine in book 1 learns to master this. And then one day somebody said to me, "Do you realize these Egyptians have got these things on the walls?" I'm like, what are you talking about? So I made a point of looking, and sure enough, there was what I had described in book 1. So now we know why the Egyptians were carrying these great big enormous people. And having told you about the aliens from other planets in my prior show, what was it called? Something about my encounters with aliens or something. You might like to watch that show and listen to it. So when I finally realized and made the connection, and then when I went on to write book 2, and we've got humans using them now, it was quite interesting to understand that the energy that we are so used to looking at is so solid, isn't it? I mean, I can't walk through the door, can I? But if I'm out of body and it's my spirit, I can walk through the door. That is a sign of fluidicity. Hear that word, fluidicity. It was a mouthful when Spirit first gave it to me. But the basic thing about any alien encounter is that wherever they come from, they have to be able to integrate their species with the natural flora and fauna of the place they're at. And of course with that comes the culture of their beings in the way they're made and born and grow and evolve where they came from, to understanding how to adapt to a different airway of vibration, shall we say, assuming that they need air. And of course there are many other species, so Spirit told me, who live on planets where they're breathing stuff that would kill us. But if they came here, they were breathing our oxygen and stuff that would kill them. So having something that would moderate our atmosphere to allow the ancient aliens to live here and teach us and create us even, and make us and evolve us in different ways, as you know, a lot of the great writers of the past have written about different things. It's very important to understand that today we start to accept what those people wrote all those years ago. Well, for me, in a way, I was tied with my metaphysical work, and I was tied with my mediumship as a spiritualist medium and as a religious minister, I couldn't talk about aliens. So when my spirit guides were channeling these books through me, and I have others, I have another one called In This Time I Haven't Finished, which is a man going backwards and forwards in time, and the evolution of how aliens in the future can move us backwards and forwards in time, because the aliens in the future are us even more evolved. So spirit guides have been given me the way of evolution in stories, and I hope to start finishing all the stories that I've been writing. And I tell you, going back from 25 until now 81, it's a lot of years that those books have sat on the back burner, as it were. And spirit guides are telling me that it's now time that I finish them. So I'm happy to tell you today that Regenesis 1 is out, and you can read it. It's an invasion story, and that I'm working on book 2, part 1 and 2 of book 2, which is the battle. I'm not giving away any secrets here, because, you know, it is in itself an unfolding secret all the way through. Nobody really knows what they're doing until they encounter something and do something, and that leads to something else, and so on. So with book 2, you know, being finished right now, I'm nearly done on book 1, part 1, and part 2 is coming up towards closure. Then I'll be able to get it out and get it published. But it doesn't end there, because there's a book 3. And I've known this all these years, but busy traveling to Japan and Europe and France and Germany and Spain and Mexico and, you know, Egypt and Peru and all over the place. I've lost count. You know, I'm always teaching, so being so busy, so writing novels was not a priority. But now that I'm home, not traveling so much, planning on teaching on Zoom, and of course we'll do some talks on Facebook now and again, as well as doing this show. And in this time now, with having new company rep with me, helping me do all this, because hey, I'm from the old crowd and don't know all the modernisms of typing, you know, beyond that, word of mouth, speaking out loud, and all these kinds of things. One had to learn. And here today, we've got AI. And I have to admit, I'm not a happy camper with AI. Why? Because my spirit guides tell me that given time, it will fall back on itself. And when it does, whatever that means, there is disaster. Now, I asked them, what is disaster? And they said, well, not the kind you would know, because you won't be here. But know that it will make a difference in the way mankind actually communicates. And in that way, it will bring people to understand what is the truth. And of course, what is the truth remains to be revealed. Now, at this particular time in our lives, everything that we hear about, people will say, oh my goodness, I believe it, and then in a second breath, oh no, I don't, it can't be true. So what do we believe? We don't know. We're confused. Add aliens into the package, people who are talking about their encounters, and we're more confused. So it's small wonder that right now, with all the things going on with space in our minds, that countries are literally taking papers that were secret, locked away from us all, and saying, well, you know, we're going to give you the truth. Yes, we have seen alien encounters. Yes, we have seen spaceships. And here's the notes, blackout, blackout, blackout. Okay, what good is that? Giving something that says at the top there was a encounter seen by somebody, black, 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 what he saw. What's the point? Doesn't really help us, does it? They're still keeping secrets. But here I want to tell you that what Spirit is telling me is that in our future, we won't be working on the sun per se. We will be working on the vibration of sound. Now, of course, sun does interfere with vibrations of sound. The wind, shall we say, echoes the sound, and we hear things differently. But don't worry, because in the future, there'll be children born who will be born with the amazing inspiration and ideas to come up with a method of heating our houses, firing up our cars and planes and boats and trains with the energy of sound that will create friction within itself to heat our homes or cool our homes, depending on how we set it. And when we use it, it will be practically cheap. So, in other words, the model, whatever it is that will sell, will eventually be at a price that everybody can afford, and we will have it in our houses. And what our houses will be by then might well be made of different things, not wood anymore, but other things, so they tell me. But by the time that sound is the main energy source, we won't need nuclear powers. We won't need to have gas and electric anymore, because we will be able to cook our food on the vibration and resonation of the echoes and reverberations in certain key forms to be able to heat our food in the frying pan. Sounds like I'm talking through the back of my head, doesn't it? But think about it. When you rub your hands together like that, try it while I'm doing it, and you'll find when you pull your hands away, you can feel your hands are tingling. You made sound, and now you're feeling its effect on your hands. Your body makes sound when you walk across the room with your swishing clothes, your footsteps. You may cough or murmur or do something you don't even know you've done, but your dog picks up, looks at you to see what you're saying or doing, or your cat meows at you, as though you are attracting them for some reason, and you don't know you've done it. You are making sound all your time, every day of your life when you're not speaking a word. Your body is noisy, your heart is pumping, your bowels are going, and every part of your muscles are squeaking and so on. Now that's our physical form, and it's like, how can I make a physical form become something that heat my house? Well, don't worry, you don't need to work that one out. It's not your generation that will. But the kids who will be born in the future, and the kids who are now down, will start thinking about it. And their kids will say, well, okay, let's make it. And the key is fluidicity. 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 That's the word Spirit's given me. What does it mean? Friction, sound, vibration, reverberation, resonation, tone, key, how high it is or how low it is. We don't understand this now, and then we sing that way. But given time with the electronics, and they tell me they're already on the edge of understanding with the computer technology they have today to know what I'm talking about, but they don't know the gimmicks, the little bits and pieces in between to control sound, to make it to be able to do what it needs to do. And I might add that it is dangerous too, because everything we ever have, i.e. coal was dangerous because everybody was suffocating down in a mine with gases down there to get it for us so we could burn it on our fire. And all the slack that would be coal that's not good for anything was made into bricks later so that we could burn those on the fire. Well, before all that happened, coal slacks were all over England, and yes, one lot flew down the hill when it was all wet and killed a load of kids in school. Terrible tragedy in Abergavenny, you say that word, in Wales. But that was then. And that tragedy made people say, okay, coal's out of date, we need gas. Gas got out of date because it was making the atmosphere too full of whatever was, we had smog all over, yellow smog for people who didn't know. And it was awful. We had to wear a mask because it was dangerous if you breathed that in. So after a while they said we have to have fuel that is smokeless. And we got through that. And then after a while we started to say, well, we need to use electricity more for heating our houses. And of course that meant big bills in electricity. In England they used water radiators for a while, and that heated the house. But it didn't make the house cool, but England was not too bad at science, so we could have windows open in the summer. But we've evolved, and we've gone from those ways of heating and cooling our house to the way it is today. So think about this. That's all I'm asking you to do. Think about it and remember the word fluidicity. Thank you for listening to me. Take care of yourself. Goodbye.